Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling the absolute exhaustion of modern hustle culture. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That endless, heavy pressure to constantly build your personal brand, optimize your LinkedIn profile, and just ruthlessly climb that corporate ladder. Well, today we're unpacking a really fascinating source text. It's a deep, profound dialogue between Bible teacher Rev. Wilhelmina Jackson and a woman named Grace. Together, they explore a biblical approach to leadership that literally takes our modern, status-obsessed understanding of success and flips it completely upside down. So in our source material, Grace asks this really fantastic question, and we've got to chew on it for a second. Is wanting a title or recognition or a platform, is that inherently flawed? I mean, it's a supernatural question. We all want to make a difference and impact people's lives, right? Well, Rev. Wilhelmina points out that this desire to serve isn't wrong in and of itself. The danger, the real trap, begins when the desire for a position totally overshadows the desire for God's purpose. Basically, the moment the chase for the title replaces the actual work, we've stepped way outside of the original design. And this is where the whole paradigm shifts in their dialogue. According to the text, God actually isn't looking for people who are just chasing positions. He's looking for stewards. And if you think about the definition of a steward, it's just someone trusted to manage what belongs to somebody else. Think about that for a second. That means the pressure is completely off you to own the final outcome, or to meticulously build some massive empire all by yourself. Your only role is simply to be a trustworthy manager of what's already been placed in your hands. To really hammer this home, Rev. Wilhelmina brings up Psalm 24:1. This verse states that the earth is the Lord's, and everything in it. Everything. That means absolutely nothing we have actually belongs to us. The church, the ministry, that business you're grinding to build, your family, even your own innate gifts and talents, they are all 100% God's property. And honestly, realizing this is such a relief. It shifts us from acting like these anxious owners who are desperately protecting our assets to just being diligent, faithful caretakers of His. Which brings us to 1 Corinthians 4:2. Now, pay attention to what this verse doesn't say. It does not say a steward is required to be highly successful, incredibly popular, or famous. No way. It simply requires faithfulness with what has been entrusted to you. That's it. The ultimate metric isn't, hey, how many followers did you get? But rather, were you actually faithful with the exact things I gave you? Okay, so this creates a massive collision with our modern culture, doesn't it? Because while the world out there measures leadership by status, by visibility, and by how much influence you have, we have to pause and ask how the Creator actually measures our success. If it's not by the size of your platform or the number of likes on your latest post, what exactly is the divine metric for greatness? According to the text, Jesus completely flipped the script on this in Mark chapter 10. He makes it crystal clear that in His upside-down kingdom, greatness is measured entirely by service. You want to be great? Become a minister. Want to be the chief? You've got to become a servant to all. Honestly, it's a radical departure from basically every single corporate leadership book sitting on the bestseller list today. It's literally a night and day difference. The world's way is all about constant self-promotion, right? Climb higher, make sure you're seen, build your platform at all costs. But Jesus' way is the exact opposite. He tells us to kneel lower, to serve quietly. And instead of building a platform to stand on, we're supposed to be building up the people around us. It boils down to the fundamental difference between using people to elevate yourself and using yourself to elevate people. And the thing is, Jesus didn't just teach this conceptually, He lived it out in the most profound, mind-blowing way possible. In John 13, the King of Kings, literally the creator of the universe, wrapped a towel around Himself and washed the dirty feet of His own creation. And then He told His disciples, I have given you an example. When we look at the master becoming the servant, it is definitive proof that true greatness always kneels before it ever stands. But let's get real for a second. Grace asks a tough, super practical question in the dialogue. How can modern leaders actually defeat their own innate need for recognition? Because sure, it's one thing to understand servant leadership intellectually, on paper. But how do we actually overcome the pride and that fierce, cutthroat competition that seems so deeply wired into our human nature? Rev. Wilhelmina's answer? It all comes down to perspective. She reminds us that keeping our final accountability in mind is the absolute ultimate cure for pride. Romans 14:12 tells us that every single one of us will give an account of himself to God. When you truly internalize that one day God is going to ask you how faithful you were and not how famous you became, it just instantly deflates all that selfish ambition. Knowing we are accountable grounds us in what actually matters. Just imagine for a second how drastically our daily lives would transform if we actually applied these servant-hearted principles. Imagine if leaders in the workplace saw themselves as servants instead of trying to be mini celebrities. Imagine if our organizations and communities were entirely focused on getting God's approval rather than chasing public applause. And bring it right into your own living room. Imagine if homes and families were led by pure love instead of this exhausting desire for control. It completely changes the dynamic of every single human relationship. And what's really fascinating is that the text points out this isn't just some New Testament idea. If we look all the way back to Genesis, we can see God's original design and its very specific order of operations. Think about it. Stewardship came before leadership. Accountability came before authority. And deep responsibility came before dominion. From the very beginning, leadership was designed to be about taking immense responsibility, not just wielding raw power over people. So, what does this actually look like for us today? Reverend Wilhelmina really emphasizes focusing on being faithful right where you are currently placed, rather than stressing out over how to acquire a bigger platform. As Jesus taught in Luke 16:10, faithfulness in those small, seemingly insignificant things is exactly what attracts divine promotion. Because when God finds a faithful steward in the little things, trust is inherently built for the bigger things. As we wrap up this explainer, the source material leaves us with this incredibly grounding framework. I am a steward, not an owner. I am a servant, not a ruler. I will be faithful with what God has entrusted to me. That right there is the absolute heart of the original design for leadership we've been talking about today. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question to carry with you. Are you ready to lay down that exhausting burden of building your own kingdom and instead pick up the towel to serve His?